Depression really did get hold of me, to the point of where I tried to take my own life.
I turned to alcohol to ease the pain of not being able to play, and that was the spiral out of control.
A fleeting thought of mine come about as I think I knew deep down in my heart that it was the depression coming back, and just felt it might be easier just to run across the M5.
I took the time to do what I thought was going to be a definitive act. Stepped in front of a truck, 60 mile an hour, 10-ton truck. I believed that my family would be happier and better off if I was dead.
I started kicking football probably around about 8 years old. Done all the school teams and Sunday league and everything else, and had the opportunity to sign for Crystal Palace as a YTS. I had to work extremely hard to get to the level of making a professional debut at the age of 17.
1, 2, 3.
Had some fantastic times where I probably played some of my best football, playing in, I'd say ultimately the best league in the world, which is the Premiership. I lost my sister to suicide while I was at Peterborough. It was a shock to the system, but around that time I never really understood depression. I think I probably bottled a lot up then and just kind of tried to brush it off. As time went on, I found circumstances in my life changing a lot. Personal circumstances, going through divorce. Depression creeped in for me when I started going through all that off the field, but also going through a lot of injuries towards the back end of my career. And with so much going on and so much pressure outside it, depression really did get hold of me, to the point of where we're talking probably 5 years now. I tried to take my own life. The first thing for me was when I was in tears in a treatment room. Just didn't know where I was coming or going. Maybe I needed a hug, because I knew I was at the back end of things, but I needed someone to hold me and say, right, okay, look, I've got you. Let's not worry, and maybe let's go into another situation where I could actually maybe get some help. That it was that day. Luckily, I didn't manage to take my own life. It didn't happen. I got given another chance, and I woke up in hospital with all my family around me in tears. And I've got my kids are my life. But at that particular time, I was just gone.
Okay. All right, last round coming up.
Yeah.
Deep breath. That's it.
My career has been fantastic, spread over 20 years, played in 2 World Cups. Just love playing for my country, it's everything that I dreamt of. I wore the shirt with passion and pride. I laid everything on the line. I suffered quite a few injuries throughout my career, especially when I went to the States to play collegiate soccer. And then when I went into the professional league there, I picked up my first serious injury, and I was out for 6 months. I didn't know how to cope with not playing football. Football was my dream, my passion. I was quite shy and not the most social. So for me, when I played football, that was my language. That's how I communicated. And when that was taken away from me, I just felt like I was nothing. I was no one. I turned to alcohol to ease the pain of not being able to play. And for me, that was kind of the spiral out of control. I would drink, I could do my rehab in the mornings and then come home and drink at about 4 o'clock until I passed out in the evenings. And that was, for me, my coping mechanism. My father, he flew out to the States to bring me back to England, but little did I know that still the alcoholism would follow me until I actually got the help that I needed. I remember having a conversation with Hope Powell, and she was like, you need to get professional help because you can't play football in this state. I didn't even want to play football. I hated football at that point. I was so low and so down and just so angry with being injured and just hating life, really.
I had a fantastic 17-year career, started at Blackpool and went up and down the country. QPR, Leeds United, Watford, Burnley, via Luton, Preston, Northampton, York. Thoroughly enjoyed it and I would say experienced good success and failure throughout. You know, it's all capped off with I managed to represent my country at under-21s, which was a phenomenal honour, really was. And then I encountered a knee injury. You know, quite comprehensive. I had to have a virtual reconstruction of my right knee, and that kept me out of the game for 2 years. And in that period, the loss of identity, the fact that my dreams, hopes and dreams had been taken away, and I didn't get any support for that because there wasn't any there. And I tried to commit suicide then in 2001, took a pill overdose. It was boxed up and stored away as though it never happened. You know, my own family didn't know anything about it, not for many years. The football club, you know, said, right, you got away with one there, let's pretend that never happened. And therein lies the beginning of my journey. It was the suppression of such a traumatic and emotional event.
The first taste that I had of it was back in 2009, whilst I was managing at Cambridge United at the time. And it come from nowhere, really. I was just one Saturday afternoon, was going to Rushden and Diamonds, got in a panic over air gel, believe it or not. I was driving along, had no air gel, and was panicking where I'm going to get some air gel. And just felt not quite right, hot and cold sweats. Thought I had a virus, really. Come home, explained this to my wife, and things just escalated from there, really. I got very tearful. Every little decision that I used to make in terms of leaving people out of the team or going into training became a problem. So we spoke to the LMA and they sent us to see a consultant. That was the start of the journey. I just carried on. I carried on burning the candle at both ends in terms of work. Everyone knows it's a 24/7 job. And I was driving along the M5 from Exeter, and all of a sudden I thought I was having an heart attack. And the best thing I can say is I don't remember it clearly, but I held onto the wheel until I got to Taunton Services. And I can remember being in that ambulance and saying to the girl, I've had mental health issues before. She said, Mr. Ling, I can tell you this is a panic attack. And before they got there, a fleeting thought of mine come about, as I think I knew deep down in my heart that it was the depression coming back, and just felt it might be easier just to run across the M5. Said to my wife, the ambulance had been here, who are you getting to come and pick me up? By then she'd only spoke to Sean Taylor, my assistant manager, who didn't know nothing about my illness, and I explained it all to him. By the time I'd got to here, or getting on the way to here, I had a phone call to say that I had to go straight to Harley Street to see a Dr. Philip Hopley. He said, you've got a severe bout of depression, anxiety. I want you in the Priory at Roehampton tonight.
Football was able to cover a multitude of sins, because if I was performing well, if the team was doing well, if we had a good season, that was able to compensate for the negativity within me, because I was placing my value in what I did and not in myself. Conversely, when football wasn't going well, then the relative low that you come to is really quite horrendous. I took from that I am not successful, that I am the failure, you know, that Clarke as a human being is invalid. My self-loathing was so high, I needed to run away from that. And I ran away usually by getting copiously drunk for days on end, or hiding in a casino where I could just get lost in that, you know. So when you go into performances, or you'll go into training having not slept, so you know you're physically unprepared for what you're about to do, which then endangers your teammates because you might be mistiming your tackles. And then when you get to a Saturday, it becomes more about the result and the win bonus and the desperation to get your wages in, as opposed to actually contributing to the success of the team. The crunch point came in November where something happened in my personal life that just amplified my feeling of isolation. You know, I believed that my family would be happier and better off if I was dead. The thoughts that I was thinking and the conclusions that I came to were my reality at the time. It didn't feel like lunacy, as it does now, looking back at what I was thinking, but at that time, that was my perceived reality. Yeah, so stepped in front of a truck, 60 mile an hour, 10-ton truck. Only to wake up some 30 seconds later. Yeah.
Because you're a professional footballer, people believe and feel that you have got no issues, you shouldn't have any issues, because you're playing a game which you're adored by thousands of fans and earning predominantly loads of money. But people forget that they were people before they were footballers, and there'll be people after they leave football. A lot of stress and pressure are put on players from a very young age. So they will come into the football industry at 6, 7 years of age, alongside the pressures of family, alongside the pressures of, you know, these kids are at school and they are, you know, put on a pedestal from school as well. You know, you're playing in front of thousands of people, and the adulation is immense. And you go into a football field and you're on an emotional roller coaster. If you win a game, you're on a high. If you lose a game, you're on a low. So the emotional roller coaster that players go through is constant. There is no kind of straight feelings. It's up and down. So I think that causes a lot of issues. Players have financial issues as well, because they've gone from earning a large amount of money to not, and that brings its own issues alongside that as well.
The FA takes the issue of mental well-being very seriously across the whole range of its participants, whether they be players, managers or match officials. We see a part of our role is to try and shift the culture on, away from that more traditional approach with a closed mindset, encouraging people to talk more about it. And we've encouraged campaigns and activities that allow people to be much more open in the way in which they engage with this issue.
There's an increasing number of mental health issues with young people, particularly young men. So inevitably, we're going to have players in our system that will have mental health issues, and we want to make sure that they feel free and comfortable to be able to talk about those and to seek the help where it might be necessary.
Any thoughts on this? What we mean by that? What are emotions?
Feelings.
Good man. The session that we put together is our emotional and mental health workshop, mainly to get them sort of to recognise how sort of emotions and feelings can affect them. But the important message is once they've recognised that they sort of act upon that and sort of speak to the relevant people. Let's just have a positive conversation around this. Let's not treat it just as illness. Let's actually treat it like physical health, that we have to do things to remain emotionally well. It would be fair to say sort of these kind of things maybe weren't recognised in the past. These roles can impact on how we feel. We need to talk about this in a positive way. We need to talk about mental health positively, not just as an illness, but actually promote positive emotional and mental health. And I think if football clubs start to do that, that can only have a huge positive impact in terms of how that will pass on to others, because we all know, you know, from a participation and a spectator point of view, this is huge in this country.
I'm really pleased to say that the FA has been at the forefront of the development of the Charter. We've worked with other sports and the Sport and Recreation Alliance to bring together a consensus across professional sport and the sports at the grassroots to actually come up with a plan that works across the whole sporting spectrum.
Stress and mental stress isn't necessarily bad. It's how we actually embrace and how we ensure that the action that we take is about prevention, preparation. So we put on a whole range of programs, masterclasses, mentors, advisors, experts, confidential helplines.
The other thing that we try to do is use ex-players, and I think what's really helped us is the number of players that are prepared to stand up and say, I've had a problem. And it's one of the most powerful ways of delivering messages to young players.
Working in Sporting Chance, we decided to put a nationwide network of counsellors in place where players who have issues can come to us and we can refer them to a counsellor. The support that's in place will be for our members of 16 years of age. So if a lad signs his contract at 16, he becomes a PFA member for life, whether or not he makes it as a professional. And the support that we have in place is forever.
Many managers ring up to find out about advice on how to help a player, how to help a coach, how to help another employee, making sure that our members know that members of their family can also access. So we really put our members, the managers and the coaches right at the forefront of everything that we think about.
When you've got someone who's interested in you as a person, it brings down the barriers and makes you feel that you are being listened to. To have that thing in place where you can speak to someone in a private and confidential setting is invaluable, and I think that's why it works. I think the more we keep raising awareness with things like we're doing today, and I think more people will come forward, and so I expect the stats to go up.
I think we all need to work closer and stronger together to make sure we identify problems, we look at awareness, we look at how we can help the whole game and society.
We want to recognise that there are issues around here. We want to get an environment where it's comfortable for people to talk about their issues and seek help. And it shouldn't be about whether it's the Premier League, the FA, the PFA. It's really important that as a group we work together on this.
An important part here is shifting the culture. We need people to be much more open. We need players, managers, all of those involved in the game, just to make sure that it's fine to actually say you need help. And we do more as a game as a whole to say, actually, it's fine, let's talk about this issue. There are helplines available, there are other support mechanisms that you can go towards. But just generally, first and foremost, breaking down that culture, it really is good to be open and to talk about these matters.
We're in a game that is a bit macho, and talking is seen as a weakness, and we want to get away from that. And if you were to pull a hamstring or twist an ankle, you'd go to your physio straight away. We want you to come forward and seek the support that we have in place at the PFA to support you with any mental health or wellbeing problems. So really and truly, it's really over to the players now.
The way in which our senior participants engage in this agenda will be very important, because if they think it's okay to do it, then our younger generations coming through will have no issue about talking about it. I'm really pleased that in the very short space of time since the Charter's been in play, there seems to have been a much more openness about this agenda, people prepared to talk, speak, communicate it, and accept, you know what, it's actually okay to ask for help. I think we all share a collective responsibility to do more and more to tackle this issue, to change the culture of the game, and I'd really love everybody out there involved in football to help us make that difference.
You know, there's so many people, there's such a high percentage in this world that suffer from depression, have lost people to suicide and everything else, and you know, I totally get it. It's not just football, it's so much bigger.
People will try and hide it and people won't know what it is, because I didn't know what it was pre-2009, but I do now. So I just think we need to understand that people with depression are normal people. I'm not sitting here with two heads.
Now I have, you know, things put in place where if I ever feel low or upset, then I pick up the phone and communicate.
At those different junctures in my life, if I had an understanding of mental health and I knew where to turn, and those people were available, I have no doubts that my journey would be different.